I'd like at this stage to introduce our three presenters and our commentator. The three presenters will be doing a tag team presentation that will take, say, 50 to 60 minutes. Stepping up to the podium is Akira Murata, who for the past 3 years has been a research fellow at the Japan International Cooperation Agency Research Institute, where he has studied remittances and household finances in the Philippines and Tajikistan. And before he starts with the presentation, I also want to introduce his teammates, if you will, for this presentation, including Jeremiah Opiniano, who is the Executive Director for the Institute for Migration and Development Issues, and also Coordinator Assistant Professor at the University of Santo Tomas here in Manila. He and our next speaker, seated to his left, Alvin Ang, developed a research tool called the Remittance Investment Climate Analysis in Rural Hometowns, RECART. And that particular tool aims to assess the conduciveness of rural birthplaces for investment of overseas remittances and entrepreneurial potential. Alvin Ang is an economist and professor also at University of Santo Tomas, as well as treasurer at the Philippine Social Science Council. And finally, on the far left, is our commentator, Sydney-based Jonathan Capel, who is the Director for Asia Pacific at Developing Market Associates. Mr. Capel is a specialist in the field of international remittances with a background in managing both remittance projects and foreign investment forums. So at this point, we go back to Akira, who's going to start off the presentation, and thank you in advance for your attention.
Thank you very much, Bert. Thank you for your kind introduction. I'm very much honored to be here to talk about remittances because I started my early research career with ADB because I spent time, maybe nearly for 2 years, to work as a consultant for the economic research department of the Asian Development Bank. So I saw some familiar faces now during, even within today. So I'm very happy to communicate with all my good friends and also the new participant here. So I would like to share my the research interest and also talk about the new research topic and also new research project collaborating with Jeremiah and also Alvin, today's speaker. So briefly, like today, I would like to talk about today, this is a structure of my our presentation prepared by three presenters here today. And first, I will briefly explain about the remittances and also household finances, particularly focusing on the household consumption, saving, investing behavior, just briefly, based on the finding from past previous studies. And then, based on that, so after understanding the basic concept on the role of remittances in terms of the household finances, Alvin and Jeremiah will talk about their ongoing and also current project of on remittance investment climate analysis in rural hometown in the Philippines. Then, now we are preparing for the new research on remittances and household finances in the Philippines and Tajikistan. It's a JICA's project. So we developed the research plan based on their research. It's called RECOUT. So that's why we are very happy to explain about our comprehensive idea about the past literature and also the current project and also our future projects. So today in this session, there is a flavor of a past and the current and the future project in terms of the remittances and household finances. I hope you will enjoy that. So I start my presentation with the first part, mainly talk about the finding from the past studies. So it's not straightforward to measure the effect of remittances on consumption, the investment saving behavior at the household level because the remittances are fungible and difficult to separate remittance income from other sources of income because a household has a different source of income. So they regard remittance also as one source of the income. So, and also like remittances are difficult to be divided into the amount of each expenditure item. There's a study on the use of remittances, but more appropriately, I think that we need to use a expenditure survey. Using the expenditure survey would be more appropriate to investigate, examine the effect of remittances on change in the household expenditure patterns. So just I summarize, it's a kind of the tip of iceberg, but just a part of the finding the past studies. So finding from the previous studies based on the household expenditure survey. So like with regard to the effect of the remittances on consumption, saving and investment behavior, the household with overseas remittances have a higher share on food, education, investment, for example, like education, housing, and also even the durable products. So there's a different finding based on, because like also like in the previous session, there is the speaker mentioned that also the quality of the data set matter in terms of the remittances, and also like migrant data set, and also like the availability of the variable we can use for the model. So just in some migration, but at least we can say migration can affect household financial decisions through the following 3 channels. So first one is migration can alleviate borrowing constraint by receiving remittances, like additional or like external source of incomes. And the second, migration can reduce non-remittance income by changing the home production technology. For example, like a migrant might be good at running the family business, or by reducing labor supply by non-migrants. So there might be a dependency or remittance income within the household. And then third, migration can change household fiscal financial decision by changing who makes such decision. This is very important. Who is a decision maker, remitter, or receiving household, or joint decision making. So that's why like this is also the very important topic in terms of the household finances and remittances and household finances. Who decide the remittance incomes? So however, just in sum, the net effect of migration on consumption, saving, and investment is still ambiguous because, again, it depends on household financial situation. It depends on the intra-household labor allocation. It depends on household financial decision. And then, like, if we look at the borrowing constraints, based on the Mexican household survey, there is a finding, these researchers found, this is a recent study, they found the positive and statistically significant effect of remittances on borrowing and on the existing of debt. So with the receipt of remittances, the household increased the debt and also the borrowing. So what is the story behind? So they try to explain why. So there are 2 explanations, 2 effects from the two sides. So remittances facilitate taking up loans through the following 2 effects. The first one is a demand side effect. So households have a lower risk aversion because they may depend on remittances to pay their debt. So they use remittances to pay for the debt payment. And the second one is a supply side effect, supply-driven effect. So lenders may accept remittances as collateral for loans, or the lender consider household to be more credit worthy, so they can pay back. So because they have additional source of income. And then in terms of the So in the previous session, there is the speaker mentioned the importance of the financial education. So these literature reviewed more than 100, nearly 188 papers on financial education intervention. Then they concluded, it's a meta-analysis, so they concluded with regard to the role of financial education and also its importance. So the financial education can have a positive impact on savings and record keeping, so financial record keeping. Then based on the global poll of local country official, government official, and financial market expert, they answered the financial education is the most effective policy to improve access to finance for poor people, so among low-income borrowers. So that we know now the financial education provision of the financial education is important to make the poor people save. For the poor people, somebody might say that they have no money to save. However, but the recent literature found that saving help households smooth consumption and finance productive investment in human and business capital for the poor people. But however, for them, there is the following 5 barriers to saving. First one is, we have already talked, in the previous session it was mentioned, transaction cost. So for example, to keep the bank account and also to open the bank account, they also need some money. And then the poor people have lack of trust and regulatory barriers. So for example, ID, so it's also mentioned in the previous session. And also information and the knowledge gap. So to improve that, institution, we provide financial literacy. And also there is a social constraint. So inter-household bargaining and sharing. So for example, among the migrant families, some relatives might seek the assistance because they know regularly the international remittances coming to the household. Then there are also the behavioral biases because we are not robots, so we are human beings. So we have some habit and also the behavior, typical behavior. So it says that we live for today, so it's difficult to save for tomorrow. So we need to also change our mindset. Also, we need to understand the human behavior. So how we can, to develop the new financial or innovative financial product, we need to take into account the people's behavior. And also commitment. There is also the research on the use of the commitment saving, a commitment saving account to make the poor people save. So there is a pilot study for that. Also, there's the inertia, the power of inertia. We are reluctant to change the current situation. So we need to tackle with these barriers to saving. But the literature mentioned despite these barriers, the poor people have substantial demand for saving. They want to save. So there's also survey the poor do have some surplus that they use for non-essential expenditure. That is a perk, because they also, we cannot simply say okay, please save, but they have also the necessary spending. So, but we try to minimize. We might need to educate them, how to minimize the non-necessary, non-essential expenditure to save for tomorrow. And then it also says that even a small amount of money can be aggregated into the aggregated for investment for the poor people. And then even without formal saving account, the poor often save in the informal way, on the mattress, an informal group, like Rosca, rotating fund. also like in livestock. But also like role of the MFI microfinance institution is getting more important in terms of the say micro saving. So it said like now there are 72 million micro savings clients today. But so it means like there is a demand for saving, so for the poor people. So that's why we also need to think about that. And then for the next steps. So first, still we do not understand like people behavior on the field. So that's why definitely we first thing to do is to need deep understanding of their remitters and also their household, and also the household finances and their decision making, how they decide their spending. And also the local market situation matters for the local investment, because if the local investment climate is not attractive, they are not willing to spend, they spend in the different places. So the remittance, effect of the remittance will be escaped to other areas. So then after understanding their situation, we need to develop and test prediction around because their response is quite different. So heterogeneous responses to intervention, possible intervention, particularly taking into account gender and intra-household decision making, and also their risk preferences and human behavior. That is a new area for the research. We are tackling with that. And then there are some ideas. I have 2 more slides for the first part of our presentation. There are some ideas for developing innovative financial products. The first, I have already talked about 5 barriers to saving. So reducing the transaction cost. There is an attempt providing the subsidies for the cost of opening a formal saving account that help to the poor people to open the bank account, and also they have a habit to save. Then also there is a deposit collection service to micro savers of a rural bank. There is also a pilot study. And also removing regulatory barriers is also helpful for the migrant workers, for example, in the case of Mexican migrant worker. So there is a provision of the assistance and a fee waiver to obtain a formal ID card that help for the migrant to access to the formal banking channel. And also narrowing information and knowledge gap matters. So we know that providing the financial literacy training matters. So, but there is a lot of study to examine the effect of financial literacy training. But not only simply providing the financial literacy training, how the contents and also how to provide the financial literacy or the frequency or the duration of the financial literacy, that should be tested. So to develop the innovative and also effective products for the financial institution. So then this is the last slide for my first part. And then understanding the social constraint matters. So for example, taking into account the gender preferences. So there is a study the female prefer to engage in the informal saving club, like ROSCA, rotating fund. Then incorporating behavior biases is really important, getting very, very important now for the research. We need to understand the people's behavior. So for example, commitment saving, I have already talked about. So also a customization of the services. For example, for the rural farmers, because they need to prepare for money for fertilizer use, to purchase the fertilizer. So if we can arrange the timing of the payment, for example, before purchasing the fertilizer, that might really affect, because if if they have money after the harvest, they might spend for other consumption. So that's why when they need the fertilizer, they might lack of cash. So that's why the timing matters. And also, again, this also can be applied to the school fees. So when they need a school fee for them or before the payment, so that's why the conditional cash timing of the conditional cash transfer payment can be arranged or customized. And then and also I maybe personally I need this because I also have a habit to live for today, so I spend money. So that's why I also have a bad memory, so I easily forget about for the necessary expenses. So that's why my wife will always remind me oh Akira, you should keep your money. So that's a reminder to save, also very important. It's not only important but also effective. So, but also maybe using a mobile phone or innovative technology, we can provide the notice to our respondent or your beneficiary or client to make them save more. So thank you very much. So this is my part.
Good afternoon to everyone. It's an honor to be invited by the Asian Development Bank. The ADB, since a decade ago, has gone a long way in the study and in implementing projects and remittances. In fact, the first ADB study on remittances by Filipinos was exactly a decade ago, and its lead author is over there, Filipino lawyer Ildefonso Bagasao. So today, Dr. Alvin Ang and myself will share some of the findings of our previous and ongoing research project called RICART. You can pronounce it in French if you like. RICART stands for Remittance Investment Climate Analysis in Rural Hometowns, and basically this is a mixed methods tool to find out if the rural birthplace of overseas migrants are really conducive for investment and entrepreneurship coming from the remittances from abroad. It was actually born out of a contest organized by the Global Development Network exactly around 4 years ago. And then over time, some donors, Catholic and non-Catholic, and recently a US university had supported the conduct of this methodology. The tool was done in the context, at least for the Philippines, although RICART can be implemented by any other origin country of migrants. And for the Asian audience here, the Philippine migration profile here states that we are all over the world, 10.45 million in almost every country and territory and ocean flying ship around the world. So remittances are a big deal for the Philippines. Although when we thought about this in 2011, at that time we were kind of wondering if the remittances in terms of growth rates will go down or will continue to go up in the context at the time of the global financial crisis. So we asked, is there anything left with the diasporic dividend? And zooming further to the rural areas where most of the overseas Filipinos come from, so what about them? How can these areas maximize the development potential of overseas migration and remittances? And then at the time when we developed RICART, we thought of remittances as something like this. This is a type of financing rooted on people and institutions that have links with the origin communities. And prominent examples of such development are in Mexico and the other Latin American countries, and also, of course, the Philippines. But RICART as a research tool aims to bridge the disconnection between investment needs for development and poverty alleviation in the birthplaces of overseas migrants, the agenda for development of local stakeholders, and the hometown empathy of overseas migrants. In the Philippines, for example, overseas migrants donate to the places where they come from. So helping the rural hometown, be it through philanthropy or through household support, is becoming second nature to these overseas migrants. So in terms of the central question, we kind of ask how remittances of overseas migrants from rural hometowns can be best directed for investment and development finance. And in terms of the methodology, what we asked were the following: financial literacy, remittance behavior, impacts of remittances on households, and then we also tried to find out the rural income generating activities of the localities concerned, as well as the rural investment climate, and of course, financial intermediation. Ricart had undergone 3 rounds, and this is our 4th year. In the first round, it was implemented in 2 low-income municipalities, one in the southern part of Luzon Island and the other one in central Philippines. Last year, we implemented round 2 of Ricart in a nearby municipality from this capital region. It is in Bulacan province. Currently, and our research team members are here, we are currently implementing Ricart in a nearby municipality from the same province. So to be presented today are findings from the second round of Ricart, and then we'll try to juxtapose some of those findings from the second round with our earlier rounds. And then we will also try to present local economic competitiveness of the third municipality. Although it is to be noted that in the years that we have been implementing this, we will also mention some limitations on how we gather the respondents. And the basis for us in the conduct of Ricart is a framework that we adopted from the World Bank. Some years ago, 2007, 2008, the World Bank released a report on the rural investment climate. And that is the bigger square on the screen. And what we simply did was we integrated the remittance factor into the rural investment climate, because whatever are needed to improve the rural investment climate is also needed by the ones who are from abroad wishing and intending to invest and do business in their home community. And then overseas migrants can initially begin as rural consumers, and then eventually they can also operate non-farm and farming enterprises, targeting almost the same market. But for the remittance investment climate, we also look at the financial literacy of these remitters and remittance recipients, their behavior in the usage of remittances, and also the impacts on the hometowns concerned. In terms of the methodology, this is a mixed methods tool. There is a survey, and then there is also a qualitative part. The survey targeted migrant remitters, migrant families, that's for rounds 1 and 2, and also 3. And then we also included, since the second round of Ricart, the non-migrant families to see if their views on the investment climate conditions are similar to those receiving overseas remittances. And all of them should be physically present in the areas where we conducted the research. The qualitative tool is inspired by methods frequently used by the Food and Agricultural Organization called Rapid Rural Appraisal. It simply is a look, albeit a quick one, about the socioeconomic and investment conditions of the municipalities concerned. And there were multiple data gathering methods for the qualitative part. And just a little improvement, if you will, in the methodology for round 2 of Ricart, we kind of looked at the locality in terms of its local economic competitiveness. And in the Philippines, courtesy of Dr. Ang and the government agencies concerned, they developed a competitiveness index. And we kind of used this framework as a lens to look at the locality's economic competitiveness. So now we go to at least some of the important results from Ricart, and then after 2 slides, I will turn you over to Dr. Ang. In terms of the number of income earners, you will see that there are more than 2 income earners in the households, which means that probably these households are not entirely reliant on overseas remittances, which is a good sign for them. In terms of the monthly family income, you will see that they are not really earning as much. It could be in the range of 8,000 to 15,000 pesos. That's around $170 to $350, or at least 15,000 to 30,000 pesos, around $370 to $500, $600. And in terms of their level of education, many of the respondents are above high school graduates. At this point, I'll turn you over to Dr. Ang.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Good afternoon to everyone. So I'd like to continue what Jeremiah has been explaining. I'm going to put in some of the findings that we have seen based on the survey itself. So these are based on the descriptive part of the survey. I just want to contextualize some things. Because earlier, when the morning sessions, we had information on remittances having big macro impacts. But in this, the reason also, one of the reasons why we did this small surveys is that we want to see what's really the impact in small communities. And if the macro economy of a country has been improving a lot, what is the relative change in relation to the individuals who are receiving remittances? And this is just a view from the Survey on Overseas Filipinos. The Philippines conducts every year a survey on overseas Filipinos, writing it in the labor force survey every third quarter. And we kind of look back to 10 years, 2002 and 2013. And just highlighted here are the age brackets and the changes in the composition of the migrants in terms of gender. And you will see here that in the year 2000, there were a lot more younger, 15 to 24 migrants going out. But 10 years hence, we see a significant change there. So the distribution now is almost across age brackets, so almost equal male-female migrants. But I want you to look here in terms of the income, the average income that each migrant would receive. And here there are significant differences in terms of male and female. And here we highlighted the red part here looks at the laborers and unskilled, which compose bulk of the migrants that has been going out of the Philippines. So very clearly, if you look at the structure of remittances, on the average, if you see it, the average remittances actually have not increased so much in the last 10 years. And we will have to look in further details in why is such a thing is happening. One possible view is that while remittances are increasing, the number of people that are going out are not really those who are earning a lot. I mean, and then there's a strong gender component into it. So there's some important policy implications for the long term. So using this context, I'm not going to look at the remittances that we have seen in the town of Pandi. And as Jeremiah had shown earlier, this is the average remittances. And you would see that the families who receive it on the average is about 15,000 pesos. It's about $400, right? And but those who are sending money said they are actually sending a little bit less. And on occasion here, meaning some of them send money for birthdays, for town fiestas, and for Christmas, etc. And we conducted a survey. In the survey, we have a simple financial literacy test where there is an actual correct answer in each of the questions that we ask. So one question, for example, is what is the interest rate if you put in 1,000 pesos and after 2 years you get back 1,060, something like that. So these are the results in the 3 places where we conducted it, and you will see that the context of inflation is not very clear to them, while majority, there's a majority who got correct answers on interest rates and loans. This is another perspective of it, but it's the same. But here we now separated it with the families and the remitters, and you would see that the remitters are more financially literate than the families that are receiving the money. So this is a very important implication in terms of sending people to go out, and then there's no congruence in the knowledge of how to use the money. And when we ask them specifically what is it that affects their financial decisions, here you will see that the biggest response actually that affects them is prices. So there's just not a clear understanding of what inflation is all about. And then we ask them this question, where do you get ideas about handling money? And the response is that all of them, even the non-migrant family, says they have their own ideas about handling money. Okay, and this will be consistent in the next slide. You will see that when do you need help in handling money, and most of them said, no, we don't need help in handling money. Okay, and how do you assess your skills in handling money? And you will see all of them will say, except the remitters, good. Okay. Yeah. So that's the terrain we are looking at. So, but we juxtapose now what they're saying with the amount of savings that they have, and they said that they do have savings actually, but if you look at the savings rate, the remitters are actually saving more because from where they are, they're able to scrimp on some of their money and save it and send some back. And those, the families that are here, the average savings are actually smaller among those who do not have migrant in their families. And we ask them who have savings accounts in banks and cooperatives, and fairly you will see that they all have bank accounts, especially the migrant families, because as you will see in the big surveys that the main channel for remittances is really coming through the banks now. Okay, a certain portion with rural banks. By the way, some of these municipalities do not have rural banks anymore. So they are moving into the capital cities to save. And this is kind of surprising. We asked them if you have extra investments, where do you put it? And almost a majority says, all of them answered in business. Okay, but only those who have businesses are these numbers. So there's a potential that there's a desire to do business, but not everyone actually is doing business. Okay, so the remitters think that they have a business in their hometowns, and the migrant families and non-overseas families. But look at the business that they have. So the remitters, almost all of them have sari-sari store or your neighborhood mom and pop. And then since these are rural hometowns, livestock, jeep is a public utility, and apartment. So the remitter is thinking something bigger than what the migrants' families are doing at home. Also, we asked them, I'm going back to this slide, what kind of financial service do you want to know more? The remitters are interested in health insurance. The families are interested in social security, while the non-migrant families are interested in savings accounts. So there's some differences in the way that they look at finance. Now, in terms of now looking at the bigger perspective of the town in terms of collecting taxes, we actually see that Pandi, the town of Pandi, is not the business performance is not as good as compared to the other towns just beside it. So the performance is below that of Santa Maria and the other two towns of Bukawi and Balagtas. And comparing it with there is a local government performance measurement here in the Philippines, and we see that actually it pales in comparison with the two bigger towns beside it. So essentially, there is the business climate is not as good as compared to the other towns beside it. And we also have a question there. So if you are investing in your hometowns, what are the constraints that would limit you from putting money? So you will see here that the migrant families and the non-migrant families have different views about what are the main inputs to their businesses. But essentially, we know here that the cost of electricity is a major factor. And here, just to show you some of the findings when we tried to work on the gender aspect of the towns, we saw here, with the help of the UN Women, that there's significant differences. Basically, is that women in these hometowns, Pandi and Mariboc, actually do not have health insurance or overseas welfare insurance. So you can see the first red line there, OWA member or the membership in the welfare fund, overseas welfare fund. The women are not members. Therefore, it signifies a certain informality in how they left. Okay, and so there's an important point there. And then the average remittances, clearly the women, and consistent with the bigger national data, are receiving less remittances than the males, signifying that they are not in professional work, a majority of them. But more women actually have savings accounts than males, and that the unspent money is placed mostly in consumer items. I wasn't able to show that here, but that's in the details of the study. So, but just as a word of warning, that's why we're trying to do this study in different places around the Philippines, because there is, we cannot get the big sample that we want. It's very difficult. The questionnaire is about 22 pages long. But and also there's some seasonality issue because not all migrants are here. So we have to work the whole year round basically to get the migrants to respond to this. And based on experience, many of the respondents do not want to answer because of, they think this is some scam, okay, because of what is happening in many of these places. So we tried our best to consider the limitations and as much as possible get as much rich data rather than get the numbers without being able to consider other aspects of the study. And I think what is also very clear here is that there's a huge market out there for insurance and social protection. That's very clear because there's a need for formality in many of these places. And even without financial institutions, you will see that that is what the people are requiring. And the financial literacy aspect is indeed very important. It's not easy, as Akira had shown in previous studies. There's ambiguity in the results, but still, it is better than none, because if there's no financial literacy, the direction is going to be just like what we are seeing. So you need to put in more financial information into the process. And I think finally, the important thing here is that while we can look at the macro implications at a positive level, I think we cannot generalize what is happening at the macro level, because each community or each hometown or municipality would have a context specificity into it. And the geography will play a role, the culture will play a role, and so therefore coming up with very general approach to remittances in this context would be good only in terms of providing basic financial information, but beyond that, the response will have to be worked on at the local level. So I think in this context, that's why we were trying to put in the local competitiveness. We want the involvement of the local authorities. Okay, so in the next steps, we're trying to improve the methodology. Akira will explain it later. In this next round that we're going to do with JICA, we're going to have bigger samples and spreading farther out to the north of the Philippines and southern part. So we kind of will have a picture now, although it's not a one survey deal. We're going to have a perspective now from different places and thus validate context specificity in that regard. So it's important to make and understand local conditions as well. Okay, thank you very much.
now I really like the joint research because I'm not alone. So I have a research collaborator here, also engaging in our presentation. So at the end, I briefly explain about our new challenge, new research on remittances and the household finances in the Philippines and Tajikistan. I'm so excited because I'm eager to work for this project. But first, just briefly, maybe a year ago, we got a request from the JICA Tajikistan office because they are wondering how they can provide assistance to the rural society in Tajikistan. Because many Tajik workers are going to Russia for their to seek their income, and then the household left behind in rural areas are female and the kids and the old people. So they also they are mainly depend on the rural agriculture economies. And also now, after that, last year, there is economic sanction against Russia. So definitely, that is heavily affect on the remittance income earned by the Tajik worker in Russia. So that's why, now we really put maximum effort to provide the policy implication to support the rural. Mainly to contribute to provide a policy implication to support the rural economy in Tajikistan. But also in terms of the migration study, Philippines is it's not the advanced country. So then I was looking for the research collaborator. So then Alvin and Jeremiah have already started their own project. So that's why we got the mutual interest and then decided to start our new project. So just briefly, the aim of our research is first again to deeply understand the role of the remittances on the household finances for the rural household in the Philippines and the Tajikistan, but taking into account both formal and informal financial transaction, detailed financial transaction, based on the detailed financial diary data set. It's a challenge for us because we try to visit our target respondents every 2 weeks to collect the financial diary data set. Because if we rely on the normal, the usual household data set, it's just a one shot in, for example, in a year. So we cannot see the whole picture of the household financial situation. So to understand that, definitely we need more rich information, including the formal and the informal financial transaction. So that's why we decided to rely on decided to more tough work, to do tough work. Then we try to develop and test the intervention. We are still discussing, it can be a financial, of course, we will provide a financial literacy, but what kind of content and how we provide and what kind of information will be educated, that matters. So that's why we need to be carefully understand, we need to carefully decide, taking into account the local context. And also, we would like to provide a policy implication for developing the innovative financial products, which will lead to future rural development and also job creation in rural areas, and also graduation from remittance-dependent rural economy. But that is in the long run. So our research focus on the short-term target. So then our project site is, because this kind of research cannot be conducted at the nationwide. So that's why we need to carefully decide the survey site to where their very cooperative, the rural financial institution, available financial institution, for example, rural bank or cooperative, and also microfinance institution who can contribute, who can cooperate with our activities. So based on their network, and also like by communicating with Alvin and Jeremiah, we decided to conduct a survey in Dingras in Ilocos Norte and also Bansalan in Davao del Sur for a year. And then in the case of Tajikistan, we have, unfortunately, like we also have a Tajikistan research collaborator, but he cannot make it, unfortunately, for his business. So also like we will conduct the same research, similar, we will apply the same research framework to conduct a survey in Tajikistan in 2 areas. That is which are Dangalas district in Hatalam province, and also like Bakush district in the same province. Because the location was selected, with taking account like available rural financial institution, also like accessibility. Mainly because in the case of the Tajikistan in winter, because we cannot reach to the target respondents. So that's why we decided the survey location near from the capital city. Then again, like we developed a new research framework based on the existing recalled Alvin and Jeremiah's on current research framework. But our new flavor is we will conduct the financial diary, we will keep the financial diary, and also we will provide the intervention, financial literacy training, financial education, and also like a provision of the market, local market information. So then this is the last slide. So just the general structure of the survey is we will conduct the household survey both for migrant households and non-migrant households. Also, like we try to capture collect the information from migrant workers. And then not only the quantitative studies, but also like we will collect the qualitative method to provide a policy implication, of course. Like we will interview the local key informant about the financial inclusion and also local business and the investment climate. Our target will be like a local government official, rural financial institution, and also cooperative and the microfinance institution. So then like we will conduct the financial diary method and also like provide intervention and the test and then try to share what can be the potential innovative financial product to contribute to the rural development in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Akira and Jeremiah and Alvin, for that tag team presentation. A lot of interesting research there, including messages and policy implications that have come out. And I think that's going to be fruitful as we move into the questions and answers. And helping us move into the next part of this session is Jonathan. You're welcome to sit there if you wish, or to stand up to offer some commentary on the presentation.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Just want to say a big thank you to the ADB for hosting this very informative and educational forum, and delighted to be here to hopefully synopsize and kind of pick out some of the key messages that we've just heard over the last hour. Okay, so with the tag team presentation that we've just had, we had initially Akira kind of outlining basically the kind of scope of the study. Akira looked at the what constitutes the positive and statistically significant effects of remittances on borrowing and on debts. This included how research should outline how migration can affect household decisions, alleviate borrowing constraints by receiving remittances, reducing non-remittance income through changing home production technology or reducing labour supply by non-migrants, and how remittances can change household financial decisions by changing who in the household makes those decisions. What he did stress, however, is that the net effect on migration on consumption, savings, and investment remains ambiguous. Akira's exhaustive review of 188 papers on financial education has found that financial education can have a positive impact on savings and record keeping. Financial education was found to be the most effective policy to improve access to finance among low-income borrowers. 32% of those who responded to a 2012 survey of the Financial Development Barometer stated this. Also found that savings help households smooth consumption and finance productive investments in human and business capital. However, there were 5 categories that Akira pointed out, categories of barriers to savings for poor. These include transaction costs, for example, account opening fees, lack of trust and regulatory barriers, information and knowledge gaps, social constraints, and behavioural issues. It was clear from the research that without available or affordable formal savings, the poor often resort to things that we would consider quite unusual in this day and age, such as saving money literally under the mattresses, saving in informal groups, and/or investing in livestock. Akira outlined some ideas for developing innovative financial products to leverage household and community remittance investments. These included reducing transaction costs through subsidising the costs of opening formal savings accounts, reducing regulatory barriers, for example, having a deposit collection service to microsavers of a rural bank, and providing assistance and a fee waiver to obtain formal ID cards. Looking at narrowing the information and knowledge gap, looked at how using RCTs to measure the effect of financial literacy trainings, for example, having video-based financial education programs. The research takes into consideration gender preferences, for example, female participation in ROSCA research. Looks at, offering a commitment savings account, the ability to customize new products and features. For example, looking at options to pay for next season's fertilizer input at harvest time, and delaying payments until school fees are due. He also really stressed, and I think this is having spoken to him before earlier about this, the absolute critical importance of using messaging to encourage savings. This is something that I'm sure probably has relevance to many of you in here, not just the target migrants for the research. At this point, Alvin and Jeremiah stepped in and outlined their Rickart research and some of the experiences of the research they have been doing in the Philippines. Alvin explained Rickart's central question, which is, in the Philippines context, looking at how remittances of overseas Filipinos from rural hometowns can be best directed for investment and development finance. The methodology that they use, the simultaneous quantitative and qualitative design, was outlined, with the quantitative providing a deep survey of migrant remitters, migrant families and non-migrant families who should be physically present in the rural hometown, and the qualitative research focusing on rapid rural appraisal, looking at the hometown's socio-economic and business investment conditions, including key informant interviews, secondary data collection within and outside of the hometown, focused group discussions and field visits. And all of this guided by a framework on local economic competitiveness, which has been done by the Philippines government. Alvin pointed out that households with migrants from their research have tended to have more working people. The findings with monthly income found that research suggested that higher incomes were recorded for remitters in host countries than migrant families and non-migrant families, and the difference in the data was quite stark. He presented some ideas some findings on how people are actually finding out about how to handle money. This included findings where basically a breakdown where people were looking at, looking from their own ideas. It also seemed to suggest that input from education about handling money from media or from specific companies has actually had quite a scarce impact, at least with the Ricard research. They found that with those that are now financially included, remitters were much more likely to hold commercial savings accounts, while migrant families were much more likely to hold cooperative accounts. And finally, non-migrants were much more likely to have rural bank savings accounts. So there's still fairly consistent access to savings accounts, but quite different formats. Some of the key messages from Ricard and Pandey pointed to the huge market needs for insurance and social protection, the relative low financial inclusion in the region, in the town, and the need to support financial information and literacy to spread to a broader segment of the market. And this seems to highlight a scarce provision of information. And also pointed out that that there was people were getting together and developing group types of funding initiatives. Okay. Finally, Akira came back to the floor and announced some findings or some research that JICA is doing on remittances and household finances in the Philippines and Tajikistan. He stressed that the research for Tajikistan is going to be likely to be severely impacted by the effect of sanctions on Russia and the impact that's having on Tajik migrants. He looked at how the research will deepen understandings of the role of remittances on household finances among rural households in both Philippines and Tajikistan, factoring in both formal and informal transactions based on detailed diary data sets. It stressed how they'll be developing and testing interventions, for example, with financial inclusion, looking at the provision of information that's available for local markets. And he looked at how, explained how they'll be providing possible policy implications for developing innovative financial products, which are intended to lead to rural development, job creation, and eventually see a graduation from remittance-dependent rural economies. So that sums up my comments on this. I have drawn up a few questions to hopefully get the floor moving. Some questions for our speakers. I don't know, would you like me to read them all out in one go? Or? Two or three. Okay, so I've got a couple of points initially here. Akira highlighted that financial education is the most effective policy to improve access to finance among low-income borrowers. And I just wondered whether any of the presenters have any thoughts on the most effective delivery of financial education, as it appears that quite often today that the classroom-style approach may not be as effective as we would hope. Another question, this may just be a rather random point that I've brought up here, but I noticed that in the research it appeared that microfinance appears to have a very low usage as a savings mechanism amongst the target survey. So I was just wondering whether this was an anomaly to Pandey or if there's wider evidence suggesting that few migrants' families are accessing savings via MFIs. And I'll give one more question here. With the summary on Ricard, Alvin and Jeremiah pointed to the summary suggesting that despite financial institutions being present, financial information is often low. So I was just wondering if you had some thoughts on why this was the case and why financial institutions are not providing this financial information literacy. In particular, I was wondering whether it's because you think it may be because of the lack of interest from them in providing a migrant household, or rather, sorry, a lack of interest in migrant households as they are not looking at them as a key source of revenue, or whether it may be due to a lack of clear method of communicating financial literacy and information to these households.